Hello.
Welcome to Catalonia in Barcelona.
Oschersleben.
Nürburgring this weekend.
Frankfurt. Enjoy the
Brands Hatch Indy Circuit.
Hockenheim.
Nürburgring race, have fun while watching.
Le Mans, a wonderful place.
Eurospeedway Lausitz.
Yes, welcome to our review of the 2006 season of the DTM. Sunday the 9th of April 2006 was the starting point. Yes, the long wait over the winter was over for the tens of thousands of fans of the DTM. Yes, Hockenheim, always the traditional opener for this series, and a new look for 2006. Gone was Opel, but the great rivals from the 30s, Auto Union, now of course called Audi, and Mercedes-Benz would go head-to-head with 10 cars each. New teams and indeed new drivers too, including, for the first time since 1991, 2 lady drivers. More of that later. But the action started on the warm-up lap. Jamie Green, the pole sitter in the Mercedes-Benz, going off in a straight line trying to warm up his tyres. And for Green, it was a terrible start to what was a difficult season. So, into the lead on the first lap. Yes, it was the old master himself, Bernd Schneider. Meanwhile, Green had to come into the pits. A disappointing start to his year.
I was losing engine power even when we went to the grid, and obviously it was impossible to get a result in the race with this problem. The team did everything they could on the grid to change some parts on the car and try to solve the problem, but unfortunately they couldn't solve the problem, and therefore my race was pretty short.
Apart from Bernd Schneider, the man benefiting most from Green's misfortune was Stefan Mucker. The Berlin ace in a 2005 C-Class Merc held off Ekstrom and Frentzen to claim second position. Ekstrom finally got the better of Mucker in the pits as the Swedes' Audi Sport Team at Sportsline crew hustled their man past his rival. However, Mucker held third place until the midpoint. Mucker survived until lap 15 before dropping another place to Tom Christensen on fresh tyres. He was not the only victim of Christensen's charge from 9th on the starting grid. 2 laps later, Ekstrom was forced to give way to his Audi teammate. After the second round of stops, Mucker became increasingly preoccupied with teammate Alexandros Margaritis. Margaritis was poised to overtake in turn 2, but as you saw, the manoeuvre ended in a collision. And Mucker finished up with broken suspension. That made him easy prey for Margaritis and Mika Hakkinen, after which he retired. The same fate befell Ekstrom. A short time later, he was racing in third when the right front suspension collapsed. His spectacular effort to limp back to the pits was ended by a surrender call on the radio. Thus, third place was handed to Heinz-Harald Frentzen and the green and white Veltins Audi. However, in an effort to keep former Formula One rival Mika Hakkinen at bay, he was close to driving on his wheel rims as more and more rubber came off with every passing lap. Bernd Schneider had the race under control at every stage. Apart from a couple of brief spells prompted by the pit stop strategy, he held a secure lead at all times. For a short time, it appeared Tom Christensen might be able to mount a challenge, but that turned out to be a passing illusion. In the closing stages, Schneider was able to err on the side of caution. The air horns blared, the flags waved, and the first winner of 2006 was the old master, Bernd Schneider. Tom Christensen second, Heinz-Harald Frentzen third, Mika Häkkinen and Margaritis finishing the top 5. So that's the order: Schneider, Christensen, Frentzen, Häkkinen, Margaritis, Alesi, Tomczyk, Schneider, Spengler and Stoddard.
Actually, I had a very good start. I could pass Jamie before first corner. I had a little highlight at the Mercedes Tribune with a very dirty circuit. After this, I was without any problems. My first one was quite hard because I was pushing really hard to get away from the others. But after the second pit stop, the car was brilliant, and I just have to bring it home.
Yes, indeed. Schneider then getting 10 points, Christensen 8, Frentzen 6 and Häkkinen 5. And they're the remaining 8-point scorers. Bruno Spengler, unlucky. He'd been very quick in qualifying, suffered a fire. So moving on to the second round, Euro Speedway Lausitz, the most easterly of the circuits in which the DTM will be racing in 2006. So some 20 drivers are lined up. The circuit, of course, has the oval, but for the DTM it's a combination of the oval and the road course. The opening race in Hockenheim showed that this year's grid was extremely evenly matched, forcing their drivers, their race engineers and tyre specialists from Dunlop into an even closer cooperation. 500 horsepower, remember, with these cars. Well, the first race may have seen a Mercedes-Benz victory, but it was looking very good here for Audi at Lausitz. But the Red Bull car there slowing Matthias Ekstrom, the former champion who looked in such good shape for victory here, running out of fuel. Absolutely desolate from that Ekstrom at the side of the track. Let's see the start. Jamie Green's performance was hardly less disappointing. Once again, he was unable to translate another excellent pole position into a race victory. Mika Häkkinen, Matthias Ekstrom and Bernd Schneider all charged past him. A disastrous start for the Briton. And there he is, locking up into the first corner.
I was still in the lead when we brake for the first corner, but then just when I was turning into the corner, I could see at the corner of my eye Mika arriving, and yeah, I didn't close the door on him, so I went a little bit wide. Well, I locked the brakes, I went very wide, and then I lost, 3 places, so I was in 4th position, which was a real shame because it's very hard to overtake here.
Things seemed to be going well for Mika Häkkinen after that. Ekstrom and Schneider were unable to mount a serious challenge of the Finn pulled clear. In the opening laps, the rest of the field appeared destined to play no further role in the outcome of the race. However, the situation changed with Häkkinen's second pit stop. Problems there for Häkkinen. Drama with the left rear wheel. Drama too for this Audi. Christian Apps having a spectacular incident here. He accelerates away from the pits, but the left front wheel has not been correctly put on the car. It departs company, rolls into the pit lane, and there's nowhere for him to go. Heinz-Harald Frentzen having a bit of a problem with his first pit stop. He eventually finished in 13th place. That left Tom Christensen to fly the flag for Audi. Starting from 5th, he steadily worked his way up to the front with a string of great overtaking manoeuvres. Making up for an average start, he reeled in the French-Canadian Bruno Spengler to go 5th. Just a few laps later, he closed in on Jamie Green, who was forced into another braking error and had to make way for his rival.
It was a great race. It was a busy afternoon. Where I was starting, it was needed to have some overtakings. And at the first stop, I got on new tires. And at that time, I knew I had to pass guys. First Bruno Spengler and Jamie Green. Great fights with both of them. It was very fair. I enjoyed it very much. I had a little bit more grip.
There seemed to be no chance of further progress for the Dane as Ekstrom and Schneider powered on in the lead. Jamie Green opted for another go at Mika Häkkinen, not always in the most gentlemanly way. But after Ekstrom had stopped, Green was only allowed a very short time to contemplate a potential podium finish. Unimpressed by his cheek and muscling past Häkkinen, the Mercedes race strategist ordered Green to move over on the finishing straight and allow the Finn home in third place. Maximum points again for Bernd Schneider. At this early stage, it appears Tom Christensen would be his only serious rival in 06. So, 2 out of 2 for Bernd Schneider, Christensen second, Häkkinen third, then it's Green, Spengler, Margaritis, Alesi, Tomczyk, Schneider and Kapfer.
I'm very satisfied with the race. I had a good start, was third, was good fighting with Matthias Ekström. And after the pit stop I came in front. The strategy was perfect of my team, and I have to say thank you very much for the help for this second victory in the second race.
So Bernd Schneider, 20 maximum points there. Christensen second, Häkkinen third, Margaritis in fourth place. Moving on then to round 3 at Oschersleben, the second of the newer German circuits. So, what would happen here? We'd had 2 Mercedes victories. Could Audi fight back? Because of new rules in 2006, Jamie Green, Mika Häkkinen, Bruno Spengler and indeed Bernd Schneider all started with an extra 10 kilograms. These 4 being the members of the top HWA Mercedes-Benz squad. And here's an interesting statistic. Bernd Schneider won the first 2 races of 06. Jamie Green claimed pole position for both, and Bruno Spengler set the fastest lap on both occasions. Second place at the first 2 events meant a better start for Audi than in preceding years. Poleman Tom Christensen, the Le Mans veteran and multi-winner, making a fine start. On board with Ekstrom. Green alongside Spengler. Here's an on-board replay from Mika Häkkinen. Watch what happens to Jamie Green this time. Really a little bit asleep at the wheel, and he loses momentum. Let's hear now from the man from Leicester.
The start wasn't great, to be honest. My reaction wasn't perfect when the lights went out, and then after I got a little bit of wheel spin as well. So 2 reasons why it wasn't good. Yeah, which is very disappointing because I think my speed was pretty strong in the race, and you know, I was very close to Bruno for the whole race, but just not able to get ahead because there's no real overtaking chances on this track.
Christensen started to pull clear of Spengler and Green. The leading group went down no further than to Frankson in fourth because the rest of the field was busy battling for positions and some contact. Christian Abt, the first casualty after a coming together with Frank Stippler. Christensen held all the trump cards and looked like mounting a serious challenge to Bernd Schneider at the top of the championship as the series leader was running in a lowly 8th place, forced to watch the Dane from long range as he made his first pit stop. Green and Spengler opted for an alternative tyre strategy, staying out for 14 laps before switching onto fresh rubber. Matthias Ekstrom pitted after 9 laps, 3 laps after Bernd Schneider. Now it became clear that Schneider's choice of an early stop was the better idea. Ekstrom lost a lot of ground and Schneider had made up his way to 5th place. A short time later, he had caught up with Heinz-Harald Frentzen, but overtaking simply looked impossible on this narrow circuit. Frentzen proved an incredibly tough nut to crack. The same applied to Tom Christensen when it came to Daniel La Rosa, the youngest man in the championship in the orange car there. Time for a strategic decision. An extremely early second stop was the chosen method to dispense with La Rosa and, as it turned out, to keep Spengler at bay. Mercedes had the same idea, but from a completely different race perspective. The cumulative effect, no change in the race order.
I mean, it was quite exciting, especially on the pit stop situation. At one point I could maybe a little bit catch up on Tom, and then we had a pit stop together and it was really near out of the pit lane, I mean, because we had really at the same time the pit stop, so I was really near to him and then he was able to pull away a little bit from me, so he was a little bit quicker.
The situation would never have arisen in the first place if Rosa and Mucker had allowed Christensen past with the same politeness they later showed to fellow Mercedes man Jamie Green. French and Schneider and Ekstrom came through to take 4th, 5th and 6th places. Margaritas was forced to retire before the end. Tom Christensen had no technical problems on his car and duly crossed the start line ahead of Bruno Spengler and Jamie Green. Christensen then the winner, Spengler second, Green third and Schneider only 5th.
It was a perfect weekend for Audi, for the team, for myself. Pole position and controlled the race, but there was of course some very key moments.
Now at the top of the table, only 2 points separated the leading two. Christensen now leading from Schneider with 24 and Spengler had moved up to 3rd place. Round 4, the DTM making a comeback in Britain at Brands Hatch. In the days when it was called the ITC, of course, they raced at Donington Park in 2003 and 2004. The chosen circuit was the Indy version, the little 1.3 mile long track, 1.9 metres, 82 laps coming up. The teams had already tested at the circuit. Here's some images, of course, of some of the great icons of London. Brands Hatch lies to the south of the capital, some 20-odd miles. Welcome to the race. And indeed, British fans had certainly embraced the arrival of the DTM back on British shores. Tom Christensen was the fastest man in qualifying. Here he is, off the line, ahead of Jamie Green. Back down the field, Daniel Rosa's orange Mercedes failed to get off the start line correctly, causing a knock-on effect behind him. Susie Stoddard was boxed in and had to watch as her lady rival, Vanina X, roared by. Frank Stippler had an even worse time of it, crashing into the tyre wall on lap 2. Frentzen and Mika Hakkinen were the first to make their mandatory pit stops on lap 6. That led to a strange scene. Out of the blue, the refuelling can hitched a ride on the Finns' AMG Mercedes. Mika then swerving with the car to manage to get rid of that fuel can. We can see a replay here of what happened. Maybe Mika just dropped the clutch a little bit too early. Shortly afterwards, Hakkinen cruised past Frentzen, who was clearly in trouble and later retired from the race. Leader Christensen left it until lap 23 for his first compulsory pit stop, quite a bit later than rivals Jamie Green and Bernd Schneider. The app crew completed their work to perfection, and their driver's lead was already big enough to see him rejoin the race ahead of the Mercedes duo. Green's fresh tyres, however, allowed him to close the gap, but not make a pass. That later applied to one of his fellow Merckmen, Stefan Mucker, who had yet to pit at that point. They're clearly impeding Tom Christensen. By comparison, Green had no trouble overtaking Timo Scheider, who politely moved out of the way. Christensen continued to extend his advantage, which became abundantly clear on lap 26, when he rejoined the race after his second pit stop. Green and Schneider came flashing past a lot later. Ekstrom was the only man in the leading group to opt for a longer stint on his second set of tyres. Not a bad idea, as it turned out. 2/3 of the way into the race, and the podium places appeared to be set in stone. Christensen comfortably led from Green, who was pushing hard, but coming no nearer. He'd probably got all he could from his tyres, but his second place looked in no danger, as Bernd Schneider was in no position to mount a challenge. He spent almost 30 laps stuck behind Timo Scheider, but was unwilling to take a risk and throw away some vital championship points. As a result, Ekstrom put in the fastest lap, despite being on older tyres. Following the second stop, after a full 61 laps, he rejoined significantly ahead of Schneider in 3rd place. But matters were to get even better for the Swede, as just a short time later, Christensen was out of the race.
Was even very conservative through turn 1, never run over the curb or anything. And then suddenly in that corner, going into the corner, something broke on the left front suspension, and that made the car undrivable. It couldn't turn right anymore, and suddenly it just got worse and worse, and suddenly I heard another clunk, and the car just turned left.
Green's elation at a potential first race win of the season and first race win ever in the DTM failed to last long. Ekstrom mounted a dramatic challenge on his fresh rubber while the British driver's tyres steadily lost their grip, and then he was off. Just a driver error. Green on the grass. The 2004 champion's first race win of the season was never in doubt after that. Damon Hill waved the flag. Green came home a disappointed second, and Bernd Schneider was third, ahead of Martin Tomczyk and Christian Abt in their Audis.
Our strategy for the race was to be quick in the end of the race, and so we was. I was catching Jamie quite a lot in the end, and then he made a mistake, and I could cruise on to victory, which was very nice.
Yes, indeed. So Bernd Schneider retaking the lead of the Drivers' Championship with 30 points. Christensen on 26, Green 19, Spengler in 4th place. On then to a very special circuit indeed. One that is very much part of the DTM and one of which always attracts a huge crowd. The Norris Ring, the street race around the Nuremberg. Undoubtedly a highlight of the DTM calendar. And it turned out to be a very hot weekend. Temperatures over 30 degrees centigrade. Bernd Schneider had regained the lead of the Drivers' Championship and Brands Hatch and was looking to extend his advantage at the halfway point in the season. Tom Christensen arrived at the Norris Ring with a similarly clear-cut target, namely recovering the lead in the standings from Bernd Schneider. The race fans were looking forward to a titanic struggle. Jamie Green on the pole position again, his 3rd pole of the season, hoping to score his first victory. At the start, yes, he got it right this time. Bernd Schneider also was off quickly in the red car, and Spengler, Häkkinen and Lacey all in front of Matthias Ekstrom. But what would happen at the first hairpin? It's always a pinch point here at the Norris Ring. And looking down, clearly Ekstrom ramming John Alesi in the red Mercedes-Benz. Christensen got involved with that and he ran into Ekstrom. So an early retirement for the veteran former Grand Prix driver John Alesi, his suspension destroyed. Green in the lead then from Schneider, Spengler, Häkkinen and Matthias Ekstrom. Lap 10 saw the first round of pit stops. Tom Christensen was the first man in for new tyres. The Dane had no luck at all at Brands Hatch, and fortune appeared to desert him here at the Norris Ring as well. Jamie Green, however, was having a very good race. The young Englishman kept Bernd Schneider at bay and came out ahead of the veteran DTM man after the first pit stop. Bruno Spengler, who started from 3rd, led the field at this point after choosing a completely different strategy to his rivals. The young French-Canadian, the 23-year-old, opted for a significantly longer stint than the rest of the leading group. The only man to stay out equally long was Matthias Ekstrom, running 2nd behind Spengler at this stage. However, Spengler's stop returned Jamie Green to the lead, where he was caught up in a tussle with Christian Abt, who was pushing the rules of racing to the absolute limit in the Playboy car.
And he made a big swerve to the left and we touched, and I think this was a bit unnecessary, to be honest, because he was not in the fight for the victory.
Let's see what happened.
When I touched the wall, the suspension was damaged, the rear suspension, and then a few laps later the suspension broke, so I spun around. I was out of the race, so not my day.
Bit of disappointment for Green, but that cleared the way from Bernd Schneider, although Mika Häkkinen was now piling on the pressure. The experienced duo laid on a thrilling fight for first place. Schneider in the red car, Häkkinen in the silver machine. But as so often happens, the pair became so preoccupied with each other, they failed to watch out for the 3rd participant in this struggle, young Bruno Spengler. The Canadian stayed out a long time, using a different strategy. That was a very clever call indeed, as the tactic was set to make him a winner. On rejoining the race, Spengler's advantage was enough to take him into the lead, much to Bernd Schneider's displeasure. Look at this incident. Daniel La Rosa cannoning into Susie Stoddard. That brought out the safety car. When everything was cleared up, it was still the French-Canadian in the lead from Bernd Schneider, Mika Häkkinen and Stefan Mucker. The best Audi driver was Tom Christensen in a disappointing 5th place. Bruno Spengler was naturally absolutely ecstatic. And there's confirmation of the top 10. Spengler, a first-time winner.
I should be 3rd now, so it's quite good, yeah. But anyway, I'm just so happy to have this race, to win this race here in Nürburgring. I think it's the best atmosphere of the whole season, and it's great to win here.
Yes, Schneider at the top of the table with 38 points. Christensen slipping behind, Spengler up to 3rd. There he is, and the AMG technical chief Gerhard Unger, who had decided to promote him to the top team, certainly was vindicated. Moving on then to the Nürburgring, Germany's most famous circuit. The second half of the season was about to begin on the 20th of August. This would be an important race for Tom Christensen. Could the Audi driver close the gap, the 8-point gap on Bernd Schneider? Meanwhile, very much the home race for Bernd Schneider, the most successful driver in the history of the DTM. And always a great atmosphere here at the Nürburgring. But no question about the man on the roll, Bruno Spengler. Many were surprised he'd been drafted into the Mercedes top squad, and indeed, Jean Alesi demoted to the 2nd team, but he was certainly showing his skill and talent. Well, not typical August weather, rain at the Nürburgring. Spengler on the pole making a beautiful start. Christensen gets a nightmare getaway and he dropped down the field. Into the first hairpin. Always drama there, but let's just look at the replay. Christensen to the left of the picture, crawling off the line. But soon the Great Dane was starting to speed up and recovering places. His experience proved too much for young Jamie Green as he moved up to 4th place. There he goes, down the inside. But at the head of the field, another youngster was giving a brilliant demonstration of his talent. Bruno Spengler was certainly the man of the weekend. He pulled away from Bernd Schneider, sometimes by as much as 2 seconds a lap when the rain started to come down. In the Stern car, former Formula 1 ace Jean Alesi drove a sensational race, moving up to 5th place at the time of the first pit stops, having started in 14th position. Lap 16 saw the leading trio come in for their first mandatory stop, all 3 of the leaders switching from rain tyres to slicks. Spengler comfortably retained the lead, and Bernd Schneider was in 2nd place, ahead of Martin Tomczyk, who was having a good race. Mika Häkkinen's crew showed exactly how it should not be done. Almost an entire load of fuel failed to find its way into the tank, meaning the Finn had to make an additional stop on a way to a very disappointing 12th place. Spengler leading then, but more problems for Tom Christensen, locking up the brakes 7 laps from the finish, and that meant he had to concede 4th place to Jean Alesi. That, of course, played straight into the hands of Bernd Schneider. The 2nd place would mean him extending his championship lead. However, he faced a threat from Martin Tomczyk, who was only a second back with 2 laps to go. Bruno Spengler recorded his 2nd successive DTM victory with a commanding lights to flag victory. Bernd Schneider held on to 2nd ahead of Martin Tomczyk. And let's check out those results. Yes, the 2nd win for Spengler. Schneider 2nd, Tomczyk, Alesi and Christensen in 5th place.
I'm going to continue as I did until now, thinking races after races, and then we will count the points at the end of the season. How can I?
And there are the points. Spengler now in 2nd place, Christensen on equal points. But at the front, it's Bernd Schneider. Then it was off to a non-German racetrack, to Zandvoort, once the home of the Dutch Grand Prix. The circuit by the seaside, the circuit amongst the dunes. This would be a popular venue for the DTM. One of the problems here can be sand blowing onto the circuit, but certainly the Dunlop engineers with their Dunlop SP Sport Max tyre had got that handled. Here we are down at the beach. The circuit, literally just the other side of that bank there. And it was Britain's Jamie Green who had claimed another pole. But yet again, he undid all the good work and made another disastrous start. Tom Christensen, Martin Tomczyk and Matthias Ekstrom raced past him. Let's have a look from Tom Christensen's onboard camera. Green, with the green mirrors, appears to go backwards. Just a few laps into the race, the field had clearly split into two parts. A leading group comprising Christensen, Tomczyk, Ekstrom and Green, and then the rest, with Bernd Schneider's red Mercedes in 7th place. The championship leader finding a way there past Pierre Caffer on lap 6. Indeed, he gave him a friendly nudge on the way. Rough and tumble was the order of the day further down the field. Mika Hakkinen in a tussle with Christian Abt, and both of them spun round. It was the steward's view that the Finn had caused the problem and he had a drive-through penalty, and Abt was also forced to retire. By the time Schneider made his first compulsory pit stop on lap 11, Ekstrom, Green and Frentzen were already on fresh rubber. Schneider had been targeting the 5th place held by Frentzen. He had closed the gap on the track but was unable to pass. Leader Christensen made a lightning-quick pit stop 2 laps later. Too quick for the man responsible for the refuelling. He took a tumble. The fuel canister stayed on the Audi, but just for a short time. There it goes. And it appeared that the lollipop man had given the all clear just a little bit too early. Just don't look at that. The car had only been stationary for 4 seconds. But generally, good work by the pit crews was one reason why an Audi trio led the field at the halfway point of the race. But the leading group had been expanded by 1, as Schneider had closed up the gap. Now was the time to think tactically and devise a strategy to make the most of the situation. Both Audi and Mercedes hit on the same idea. The 2 leading championship contenders, Christensen and Schneider, made their second pit stops at the same time. Christensen continued in the lead, but Schneider became stuck behind Ekstrom in traffic. Ekstrom and Green had clashed. We can see it again from Spengler's camera, and Green getting a drive-through penalty for that incident. Shortly before the end, Bernd Schneider demonstrated that patience can be a virtue. He spent more than 10 laps reeling in Tomczyk, waiting and watching for his chance. Once again, experience made the vital difference. Christensen was the only driver capable of resisting Schneider, although the veteran extracted the maximum possible out of the start from 7th. Second ahead of Martin Tomczyk was more than he could reasonably have expected beforehand. However, Tom Christensen fans were the people most delighted by the result. Spengler had another good finish in 4th place ahead of Heinz-Harald Frentzen.
A perfect start from the front row, and really the car was good. Controlling the pace was sort of no problem. At the first pit stop, the crew was so fast that they forgot the can, or the can was still on board. But you know, a little bit of rinking and it's off, and then we could keep going.
So Christensen's challenge was back on track. Now 10 points behind Bernd Schneider. Bruno Spengler was still 3rd. So moving on to another new race on the calendar. Barcelona, the circuit of Catalonia. Most of the teams had little data on the track, but they were all anticipating a very good battle. Yes, it was the first DTM race to be held in Spain. Spain thus becoming the 16th country to host the series. Going into the race then, Schneider in the lead of the championship with 54 points. Christensen closing up perhaps with 44. Spengler on 39. And in practice and qualifying, it looks as if Barcelona would suit the four rings of Audi. Tomczyk, Frentzen and Christensen all qualifying very well. Let's check out the start then. Off they go. Into the lead. It's a Red Bull car, but it's not Ekstrom, it's Tomczyk. Heinz-Harald Frentzen in second place. But then problems on the first lap for Audi. Christian Abt involved in a pile-up. Just look at that at the back. Nicholas Kieser, the former Formula One driver from Denmark, also involved in this mayhem, together with Vanina Hicks and Pierre Caffer. And poor Jamie Green was also left with nowhere to go. After the safety car phase, Audi suffered another major setback when Christensen was unable to prevent Schneider from taking third place. The Dane's subsequent collision with the Merc certainly affected the car later in the race. Schneider was now chasing Frentzen, and he forced the German veteran into an error. There he goes wide, and Schneider goes through. Christensen needed to find more speed, but his car appeared to be damaged by the early collision. There he drops back behind Matthias Ekstrom. The championship was starting to slip away. But Martin Tomczyk was having a very good race. He was leading and had an error-free pit stop. There he rejoins the pits. By contrast, Tom Christensen was preoccupied by the struggle with his own vehicle. There, another incident. Points were slipping away. Ekstrom, meanwhile, was charging up behind Schneider, and he muscled his way past the veteran. The stewards reckon the manoeuvre was going too far and ordered a drive-through penalty. Ekstrom rejoined in sixth place behind Christensen after serving that penalty, but he was soon to move up to fifth. Christensen was off the track again, and when La Rosa in the Mercedes condemned him to ninth place, that was effectively the end of his championship ambitions. A small ray of hope, though, for Audi. Frentzen, who had been a little untidy at the start, was battling back. Here he is, battling against Bruno Spengler and moving up into third place. Schneider almost succeeded in pulling off a dramatic last-gasp coup as he shaped up to pass Tomczyk 3 laps from the finish, only to go wide and finish up driving through the gravel trap. So it was a new victor in the DTM and a new circuit. Martin Tomczyk taking the checkered flag, Schneider in second place, Frentzen in third. In fourth place, Ekstrom, then Spengler, and out of the points, Tom Christensen.
I'm really happy, I can't believe it right now. I have to say the start was good, as well the first laps I could do my speed. And in the middle of the race I had some very well fights with some Mercedes. I have to say thanks because I overtook them without touching. At the end of the race I had some problems with the brake. I had 2 misbrakings and so Bernd could close up again. But fortunately he made as well a mistake, and so I did my last 3 laps really slow, and then I could celebrate my first win.
Congratulations to him, and that left the points table looking like this, with Schneider on 62 points, Christensen on 44 and Spengler on 43. For the penultimate race of the series, there was another new track, Le Mans. Not the full 24-hour circuit, but the Bugatti track, still a very technical venue. Schneider required just 3 points from the last 2 races to claim his 5th DTM championship. He topped the points, of course, on 62. Christensen was now some 18 points behind, going to a circuit that he knows so well. Again, another new circuit. The French certainly embraced the DTM, although Jean Alesi would be the man that they would be watching. So to the race. Spengler on the pole. The young man had certainly come of age throughout the season. Christensen made a mistake at the start. Green and Häkkinen both came through. But at least Tom Christensen managed to hold back Margaritis. However, Schneider was having a tough time of it too. He was off on turn 3. There he is going through the gravel, twitching. Then there was an incident. Stippler, Matthias Lauda and Ekstrom all being involved in that fearsome shunt. Fortunately, no injuries, but 3 very damaged motor cars.
I feel good, I should say. Many thanks to the guys who did the construction of the car. It was more or less safe, I think. And, well, it happened like a typical race accident happens. I think Pierre and Eki hit each other, and Eki hit me then, and then we went into the gravel, and because it went very downhill there, and the gravel and the grass was pretty wet still. We had no brake shots, and downstairs I hit Matthias Lauda very hard.
The cause of the pile-up remained unclear. Matthias Ekstrom, one of the stars of this particular show, offered the most convincing explanation to the incident.
I was in the middle of the field, and through the first corners it's always very tight when you're starting in the middle of the field, and that was also the case now. And I was touching a little bit with some cars, but I had no big accident. And then exiting the first corner down to the corner number 2 under the bridge, I got a hit from behind and I broke the rear right suspension, and then I went over the grass and was very lucky to not hit anyone when I came back on the track.
Not surprisingly, it took 3 laps to clear the debris before the race action resumed. The Mercedes trio of Spengler, Green and Häkkinen led the way, followed by Christensen in 4th at the head of an Audi group, also featuring Tomczyk, Abt and Scheider. Schneider came in for his first compulsory pit stop on lap 6. His trip into the gravel had ruined his tyres, so he urgently needed new rubber before starting a charge from 16th place. The situation was clear enough. Spengler and Christensen both had a chance of scoring well. Schneider definitely wanted to avoid the championship going down to the last race in Hockenheim. Nothing for it but to attack, attack, attack. Pierre Caffer in the green Castrol Audi was the first obstacle on the way. He provided some opposition, but then Schneider muscled his way by. Quite a lot of paint was exchanged in that particular incident, and still Caffer hangs on, the man who's raced successfully in America in an Audi sports car. Remember, he's only in one of the 05 Audis here. Finally, Schneider is on the right line and he starts to pull clear. Midway through the race, the action hotted up at the front of the field. Green had joined Heinz-Harald Frentzen in taking on fresh rubber and rejoined together just as Christensen came charging up from behind. Green was clearly unsure of his new tyres. He took a trip through the gravel, and Heinz-Harald Frentzen spotted a gap and he went for it. Green had lost a lot of speed. Frentzen made a comfortable pass, or so he thought, but he hadn't reckoned without Green's immediate retaliation. On the spot, the stewards launched an inquiry into the incident.
Under braking, he tried to close the door a little bit, and we touched, and he went wide, and then I got a drive-through penalty for that, which I thought was quite hard, but there we are.
The Greek-German driver Margaritis was determined not to give in without a fight, and he was up against none other than Bernd Schneider, who was now up to 7th place. There's Schneider coming out behind the black car of Margaritis. Norbert Haug, well, not sure exactly what he thought about that. Mercedes-Benz boss. Meanwhile, Tom Christensen, who had led the DTM early on in the season, was running towards 3rd place. There, Schneider going past Jamie Green. His next target would be Martin Tomczyk. Green had certainly been racing hard after his drive-through penalty. But at the flag, it was another victory for Bruno Spengler, right behind him, Mika Häkkinen. Tom Christensen was forced to be content with 3rd place, and the championship went to Bernd Schneider. 5th place was good enough to take the title. But another victory for Bruno Spengler, Mika Häkkinen 2nd, Tom Christensen 3rd.
I'm very happy, even it doesn't look like that, but I'm so happy to finish with this weekend. You can't be more happy for that, because after having such a bad start and being last and finish with this way, the team was brilliant, and we will have a long party tonight.
Yes, indeed, Spengler there celebrating, and the now traditional kiss of the AMG Mercedes C-Class's bonnet. So, the final round of the 2006 season. The championship was won, but 2nd place was still open. Off to Hockenheim. The series always starts here, it always finishes here. And there was an absolutely massive crowd of 149,000, a new record in DTM history. The drivers are paraded. Lots of speculation already about next year. Jean Alesi had already announced that he would be retiring from the series. There is Jean Alesi. Mika Häkkinen there with Jamie Green. So to the race. Heinz-Harald Frentzen starting from the pole. Spengler also on the front row. We go with Schneider, the new champion. But into the lead, Heinz-Harald Frentzen, all that experience in Formula 1, as ever, a few cars going wide. On board with Schneider. Always a tough competitor. As the race settled down on lap 2, the order was Frentzen ahead of Green, Tomczyk, Spengler, Christensen and Schneider. Early on, Green putting pressure on Frentzen. Too much as it turned out. The Englishman on a wide line, and that overtaking manoeuvre certainly didn't work. He slipped back to 4th place. But it was a serious struggle at the front with 4 and 5 cars in that leading battle. Mika Häkkinen, after a good race at Le Mans, kicked off the round of pit stops on lap 6. The Finn was lucky as he rejoined, just coming out in front of Timo Scheider. Bernd Schneider was the next man in. By contrast to Häkkinen, the newly crowned champion was unable to retain his position on rejoining. Tom Christensen coming off better here. Spengler and Frentzen were wheel to wheel at the front of the field. And Spengler, as befits the coming man of the DTM, going through. Behind them, the 2 fiercest rivals of the campaign, Schneider and Christensen, in contact there. You can see that in a replay in just a moment. Schneider's red Mercedes locked up and touching Christensen. Nothing serious, but the stewards issued a warning to Schneider. However, the pair are out of contention for a race win. It was Bruno Spengler and Jamie Green who were at the front. Back out on circuit there goes Spengler. His mechanics had turned him round 2 seconds quicker than Jamie Green. Mika Häkkinen failed to make it out of the pits. A damaged diffuser managed to spell the end of his 2006 season. Spengler continued to lead from Green, followed by Schneider and Christensen battling for position. Meanwhile, more drama for the huge crowd. Heinz-Harald Frentzen is spun by Matthias Ekstrom. And this proved to be a sorry episode. 2 Audis clashing together, certainly something that didn't impress Dr. Wolfgang Ulrich there with the bald head. Ralf Moller, the footballer with a checkered flag, and it's Bruno Spengler who came home to take another victory. And Spengler was certainly the man of the moment. And of course, the runner-up in the DTM was a happy man.
Totally happy today. Today is a great day for me. My race, I'm really happy about my race, just my start, but anyway, I can forget the start because the race was good. My car was really good. My team did a great job the whole weekend, and also the pit stop strategy was great. Couldn't be better. My mechanics were really quick to change the tires. Totally happy today, and I'm going to have a big party tonight.
Yes, indeed, the final championship standing, Schneider with 71, Spengler 63, Tom Christensen 56, and Martin Tomczyk, a good season with 42. The Vodafone AMG Mercedes team winning the team championship. But there was time to reflect on a great season for an old campaigner, Bernd Schneider. But what about Bruno Spengler? He is the man to watch in 2007.
I just wanted to say goodbye, and this was the end of the season 2006, unfortunately, but I wish you a good winter and see you next year, of course.
Yes, indeed, it all started with a victory for Bernd Schneider in the red Vodafone Mercedes-Benz. Tom Christensen in the Siemens Audi challenged early on. Matthias Ekstrom only had the single victory at Brands Hatch. And Bruno Spengler, in fact, won more races than anybody else to take second place in the title. Martin Tomczyk was a first-time winner, but no doubt about the 2006 champion. It was cool Bernd.